Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
And to my right, another one of my best friends in the whole wide world, usually here, tagging in for me when I disappear. Rakush, how are you doing?
Jaren, I got Isekai to Montreal and back in the last year.
I don't know what it is about those trucks, you guys. I don't know what it is about those trucks, but in a special twist of events, guys, we're all here.
We're all here.
Back in the Saturday morning clubhouse together with the boys.
Hey.
And doing this in person. I'm not sure, when you guys record when I'm off somewhere lost, do you guys record in person or is that over the
No.
So
No, this is the first time I've been in the clubhouse in years, I would say.
Guys, that feels amazing. And I want to start off because, guys, you know me. I like stroking my ego because I'm an egotistical maniac behind the scenes. So, guys, I'm going to play a game of 6 degrees of separation.
Okay.
I'm going to start with myself, Jaren. And back in my CFRE days, the original home of Saturday Morning Arcade, I interviewed Director X, so that's my first, I guess that's the first degree, right? Okay, so I interviewed Director X, who has directive videos for artists such as Drake. That's the second degree, right? I don't know how this degree works. Drake did a song with Eminem, or he was part of a song with Eminem for, I think it was Forever, right, Rakush?
Those are the two rappers I absolutely don't listen to.
So Drake did a song with Eminem, and then Eminem performed with Elton John once, I believe, at one of the Grammys.
Yes, that I do remember.
Elton John featured on a remix of Rina Sawayama's Chosen Family. And guys, this is where I'm getting to with all this. On Rina Sawayama's album, Sawayama, she has a song called Bad Friend. And guys, I'm the bad friend because I forgot your souvenirs. So I was in the shower thinking about the homies because, of course, when you're in the shower, you think about the homies.
All the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
100%.
And I thought, oh, that's what I forgot when I was coming to the Saturday Morning Arcade Clubhouse. I forgot Matt's Pekora keychain, as I told you before, Matt. And I forgot Rakush's Chibi Power acrylic stand. I don't know where you're going to put that.
Oh, shit.
But those two are currently in a shoebox beside my bed. And you'll get those eventually.
Nice.
Eventually, you guys.
Nice.
And that's my... I was thinking about that intro all day too, Matt. Also in the shower while thinking of the homies.
Nice.
But guys, speaking about Rina Sawayama, she was in a movie recently, John Wick 4. And I was thinking, guys, what are the chances of, Keanu appearing in the Fast franchise? Do you think Keanu's a bigger name than the Fast franchise, or do you think you could see him there? I think this will relate to what we're going to talk about soon in a segment later, but in the theme of Keanu, do you think he could be a get for the Fast franchise?
I need some time to think about this right now. You go ahead, Ben.
I think that he could appear in the Fast franchise. I don't think he would want to appear in the Fast franchise.
Do you think Keanu is above the Fast franchise, Matt?
I don't think that he's above the Fast franchise. I feel like Keanu is a person to be like, I don't feel like I don't know. I'm trying to do like a voice like him. I don't know how he talks. I feel like he would think he doesn't fit the Fast franchise.
Do you think he fits the Fast franchise?
I feel like he would, mainly because this is a franchise where I think it's been like 3 or 4 movies now where we've had Helen Mirren in it. So it's like once she got into the franchise, I feel like no actor really has a reason to say they don't belong in this franchise. If Helen Mirren in Fast 9 could be like stealing some necklace and then riding like a purple whatever Lamborghini looking car. I'm bad with cars, but like if she could do that, I feel like Keanu Reeves can be in Fast 10.
You know what? Now that you're bringing up the kind of like Helen Mirren stealing something, do you think that if Keanu Reeves was in the movie, he would be John Wick?
Ooh.
Because Jared, going way back into Saturday morning arcade days, we already know that canonically, John Wick is in the Payday 2 franchise.
Yep, that's true. That's
Right.
true.
So, do you think that John Wick could also appear in the Fast and the Furious franchise, which also leads to another degree of separation?
Okay.
Jaren, could Jacket show up in the Fast franchise?
I feel realistically speaking, if Jacket from Hotline Miami were to appear in the Fast franchise, I think that's a cameo at best, where there's going to be like a heist in, say, the next Fast or the one after that, and someone's heisting, and whoever's heisting has the masks from Hotline Miami. I think that's how you can realistically get away with it without it being too well. Guys, I know we all know why we're all here. It's a special occasion just because Fast 10 came out, and what better way to kick off this entire episode of The Mistake Zone than, Matt, revive what COVID took from us, Matt. Our Mistake Zone Fast and Furious spinoff, where we discuss, Fast 10, Fast X. We're fresh off a viewing. Rakush, you literally came here right after.
Yeah.
Matt and I saw it last night, so fresh on our mind. But on the topic of Fast, Matt, to your question, if Keanu were to appear in the franchise, would it just be John Wick? I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I feel like with the John Wick franchise as a whole, there's a level of seriousness to it. Sure, it's like a Gunkana action movie at its core, but I feel like there's a seriousness to John Wick that isn't present in the Fast franchise, where I feel like if Keanu were to appear, there would be a wink at the camera alluding to John Wick, but it wouldn't actually be John Wick.
Yeah. So like he plays a John Wick type character,
Yes.
but doesn't go by the name John Wick.
Really? I feel like the Continental could easily fit into the lore of Fast and the Furious.
Do you think this is where it's going to be the Continental versus the Agency at one point?
Ooh, maybe.
Do you think that's a spin-off?
I think that's maybe a spin-off. Yeah, I think that's a spin-off.
That's probably just like Hobbs and Shaw Part 2.
Because eventually, since we're going to talk about Fast 10, eventually I wanted to get to the point of who else can we get into this franchise? Like, what B-level, I guess B-tier actor could we now get just to add to the family? And let's come back to this later, because Rakush, I see your gears spinning right now.
Yeah, I think I
or
already
your
have like...
gears shifting right now. And you're trying to think, but...
I guess you better fasten your seatbelts for the answers later.
Yes.
That's what I'm going to call this episode, by the way. This episode is genuinely called Fasten Your Seatbelts.
But before we get to that, why isn't Nicolas Cage in these movies yet? Do you think Nicolas Cage is a get?
I think Nicolas Cage is a game-changing get, personally.
I don't know. Was Nicolas Cage in The Expendables? Because I feel like anybody who could be in The Expendables is also a fit for the Fast franchise.
He's not in The Expendables, but he was in a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds.
True. And since The Mistake Zone is a video game adjacent podcast, the only video game mentioned for now, or this episode, did you see Nicolas Cage in Dead by Daylight?
Jen, I need to know if... Okay, when you both saw this news, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you guys, when you initially read that news, think, oh, obviously he's joining as a villain?
That would have been really good, actually.
That was my immediate thought of, oh, cool, Nicolas Cage is going to be a killer in this game. And then I saw it in the Discord, and somebody brought up, hey, I don't know if it's going to be as a playable, as one of the survivors or one of the villains. And the fact that it didn't even cross my mind that Nicolas Cage could be a survivor, I want to know if you guys kind of maybe went through this thought process as well.
I think maybe so. Out of the three of us, I think I'm the one with the ungodly amount of hours in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so when I saw the news that Nicolas Cage is going to be in Dead by Daylight, I immediately thought Survivor, just because Ash from Evil Dead, he's a survivor in the game, and when you look at all of the licensed killers, they were notable. Either original characters or like notable horror movie icons. And I understand where you're coming from, Matt, with Nicolas Cage, but I think just from the amount I've played and their gets, because they've gotten some characters from Stranger Things and they were like the survivors. And even a lot of the Resident Evil and then like Silent Hill protagonists, those were attuned to the survivors, where I think with Nicolas Cage, it would be a bit difficult for him, especially just as Nicolas Cage, to be a killer, because one, I don't know what his moveset would be, because you would have to have a tailor-made moveset, and this is also going to be a bit weird. I feel like with Nicolas Cage as a killer in Dead by Daylight, there's a level of self-awareness involved that I don't think Dead by Daylight has. Like, if you make Nicolas Cage a killer, that's kind of like a meme, and I don't think memey as Dead by Daylight can be, I don't think it's like that level of memey to the point. Unless you were to get his vampire character from
Renfield?
Yeah, from the latest movie. But I think that would be a stretch. But that's the Dead by Daylight corner in our Fast and Furious episode. But boys, we're here, Fast 10. But before we get to it, I wanted to kind of talk about Fast 9 for just a tiny bit, because I feel like I need to contextualize what I think of Fast 10 by saying what I feel about Fast 9. And it's been, what, now 2 years since Fast 9 came out? A year or two?
Yeah, it was like when COVID started, right?
Yes.
That's when Fast 9 came out?
Yeah. Or a year, yeah. So there's been some time, and since I've been rambling on about Dead by Daylight, Rakush, what do you think of Fast 9 as a whole, and like as a film, and where it fits overall in the Fast franchise?
So I think for me, the Fast franchise, I would say Fast 8 and Fast 9, to me, are probably two of the weakest in the franchise, mainly because it felt like the vibes, and for lack of a better term, vibes were completely off in that franchise after 7. Like, I'm not 100% certain it was the right decision to continue the franchise after Paul Walker died. So there was a lot of things in those movies where that was always in the back of my mind. But even beyond that, it felt like there was just something very weak about Fast 8. I actually think like Cypher, Charlize Theron's character, least favorite character in the entire franchise. Like one of my least favorite characters in movies in a long time, to be honest with you, because it, like, her character always felt very info dumpy. Like, it was just a lot of exposition on her end, or a lot of just empty dialogue where it was like, I'm gonna say this thing to look very cool kind of thing, and it's like, all right, I guess. There were cool parts about 9, specifically the meme that they went into space, I think is like, that was a thing that like 7 years ago we were joking about, and then it actually ended up happening, and it's like, holy, I can't believe that happened. But overall, I feel like it was quite weak. Like, what were your thoughts on it?
Actually, I'll throw it to Matt first, just because I'm trying to gather it all. My own info dump.
That is true.
My own Cypher info dump.
Like, I'll be honest, as someone who never really cared too much I mean, I don't think anybody really cares too much about the plot for in these Fast movies. I do definitely think that, and straight up, I don't know what happened in 8 anymore. I have completely forgotten what goes on in that movie. For 9, I do basically just remember, hey, they're in space, good meme, and hey, look, Han's back, he came through a sewer or something. And those are really the only things that I really remember of Fast 9. But I kind of do agree that 9 is on the weaker end of the Fast echelon of movies. But yeah, that like, it's basically where it falls for me. Like, 9 was entertaining. It was very memey, and it very much felt like if this series hasn't already jumped the shark, they've, like, this is the one where they jumped the shark.
just a quick pin. I do want to ask that as a follow-up question later on because there was a very funny Twitter thread a couple of days ago basically asking that same thing. So I want to get your thoughts on that too, but later on.
But when it comes to Fast 9, so just to add some context, when we were all really anticipating Fast 9 when it came out, and then, COVID unfortunately happened. But with Fast 9, I feel like it was gearing up to be this big spectacle, like, oh, The Rock's not going to be in it, but they bring in John Cena. And hey, it looks, all the trailers that they show are going to be like really big. And of course, the let the cat out of the bag. We saw Han in one of the initial trailers too. And that's where the hype was coming from, where, oh, as you said, Rakush, this is something we've been memeing about for so long that, oh, they're going to retcon Han's death. And for them to actually blow their load in the trailer, like, I was super excited. And then I remember watching Fast 9 for the first time, and by the end of the movie, I honestly felt like, and this is going to be unfair of me to say about this franchise, but it's the fact that when I take Fast 9 as a whole, I had to suspend my disbelief way more than I had to previously for the Fast movies. And of course, this franchise is suspend your disbelief. But I go back to Han, where we meme about, oh, they're going to retcon Han's death. He's going to come back. It's going to be so cool. And then the way they actually execute it, where, speaking of the info dump, it's this really roundabout way to kind of retcon how he survives and how he's part of the agency and how there's holograms. And when you kind of think about the disconnect of, when was this movie produced? Like 2003, early, like,
the original
Tokyo Drift.
Oh yeah, that was like 05, I think.
Yeah, they had like flip phones and like, sidekicks.
Yeah.
Now we have to like suspend our disbelief, retcon it. No, all this hologram technology was at play here. And then, as you said, oh, they're going into space, but I feel like even that was kind of unearned too, just because it's kind of a throwaway goof at that point where all this comes together, and the only saving grace for me is the fan service. It's when Han reunites with, Bao's character, Sean, Lucas Black's character, I forget his name.
Yeah.
As much as I adore Tokyo Drift, but it was one of those things where I feel like, okay, 9 is when they kind of jumped the shark, and that's when I thought, okay, maybe I'm hesitant towards this franchise now, just because I feel like 9 didn't hit right with me, because it just felt like it was too much for a franchise that is too much. And that's why when I was going to Fast 10, I thought, I'll see it because I've seen all these movies. But I didn't have any expectations going in, just because I thought, oh, this franchise is like whatever now.
Real quick, do you remember how Letty found Han in part 9?
Yep.
Because that scene is so ridiculous. There's a lot of ridiculous things in that movie. But the fact that she's like, hey, remember when Han said that his Mexico is Tokyo? And then she points up.
Yep.
And it's like a Mexico flag in someone's window. And like, that's how she finds Han. And it's like, yeah, all right, but sure, whatever. I guess.
Like, it's a ridiculous like premise, but at the same time, like, this franchise is ridiculousness.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I was sitting there just like arms crossed, this movie's so dumb. Like,
yeah.
You know me, I say the Fast movies are so dumb with a smile on my face, but when I like think about Fast 9, it's, this movie is so dumb, and I'm like angry for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, it's a common known fact, Rakush, that there are no Mexican people in Japan. So of course, that's where Han had to be.
Just like I love that scene. Like, it was on TV a couple of days ago, so like that's also a little fresh as well. There's also that other scene where Tyrese's character spots like hired goons in like undercover uniforms because they have cauliflower ears, and I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, all right.
And like, correct me if I'm wrong, Fast 9, that's the Tyrese, Rome's like existential, like, feedback of how do we keep surviving all this? We're
that very self-aware moment.
I feel like that would have been way better if it's not lumped with, we brought Han back, but it's dumb. We went to space, but it's dumb. Like, Tyrese's like self-reflection in Fast 9 was one of like the best parts of the movie, but I feel like you can't have that, like, those dialogues when you're really trying to cram how Han survives. like just to bring him back, or like I don't
Yeah.
know. To me, Han in Fast 6, I think, telling Gazelle, right?
Giselle, yeah.
Yeah, saying her asking him, "Hey, should we go to Tokyo?" And he's like, "Not yet." And then like that's see something like that is fine for me, but him linking up with Mr. Nobody, escaping through a sewer, and then thinking, "No, this is too much." And so I'm going into Fast 10 hesitant, and by the end of Fast 10, I remember just looking at Matt, and we both had big doofy smiles on our faces, and I have to admit it, boys, I'm back in.
Yeah, it's all the way back right now. Oh man.
For a I was trying to explain it to, our pal Julian, who, he messaged me before the movie saying, I just read some spoilers. Oh, I don't know about this one. And then, that's in the back of my mind. And by the end of it, I look at Matt, and Matt's like, I don't know what Julian's talking about. Like,
This is definitely a movie where it's worth more than the sum of its plot.
But Rakush, again, you're fresh out the movie. What are your initial thoughts of Fast 10?
Okay, I've written down some notes here.
Okay.
Okay, I want to start with the one line that it took me out of the movie for 15 minutes because it was so good I could really think of anything else. The only Rome you know is Roman noodles.
That line, yes, that was a line I wanted to bring up because I love Ludacris. Yeah, but two, he tried his hardest with that line, and he tried. I'm not sure that line actually works.
That was a good line.
Or does it work so well that we're still talking about it as the very first thing?
In terms of like Ludacris's delivery for that line, he tried. He tried to make that work. But
I want to see like the outtakes for that line because there has to be more takes where it's like, yeah, I didn't hit like Ludacris like looking at the director and being like, I want to do that again. I didn't hit the joke perfectly. Just like seeing the reaction on everyone's faces on set. Like I just want to see the bloopers for that line because holy shit, when I heard that, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, they had to have done multiple different jokes for that thing, right? Yeah.
And you think that line's the one that's stuck? But
Like, this is actually why I'm so angry that stuff like Netflix and any other streaming service in general doesn't have bonus features that used to be on DVDs.
Yeah, I feel you. That is an interesting thing too, where it's like those still exist because obviously the DVDs and Blu-rays are sold specifically, but they're not available digitally in a way that's easy to access, which is an interesting side note as well. Something to potentially think about. I
don't know about you guys, but I feel like the moment I watch a trailer for some sort of reaction thing, just because I'm usually a person who sees a movie and I'll go onto YouTube and bring up content creators that I know, who do movie reviews or just feedback episodes. And I feel like the moment I do that, my algorithm will start, feeding me, hey, here's the bloopers of the movie, like the previous movies. And I feel like that's where I consume bloopers and outtakes now. But no, I agree. Just because for me, I would love buying DVDs, back in the day and then rewatching the movie with director commentary.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite things now that you guys bring it up, I feel like that could be a reason to subscribe to a lot of services where, hey, if you can offer, a commentary track as, a bonus feature or something like that, I think that would be really make me inclined to rewatch movies on, streaming services.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that the technology exists to put director's commentary onto Netflix or Prime or whatever, because when these files are delivered, I guess I'm speaking from experience here, but when a lot of these files are delivered, you're just delivering it with different audio stems, right? And one of them just has to be director's commentary. Like, you might not get the bloopers and stuff like that, but at the very least, you could, in theory, get director's commentary and, stuff like that. So it is a little bit disappointing that isn't readily available nowadays. But I guess back to the fun stuff. Like, honestly, most of my notes are very, like, plot specific spoilery stuff, so probably we're just saying, like, if you're listening to this episode, it's spoilery.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I think one of the things that I noticed throughout the movie, again, I mentioned one of my favorite parts in Fast 9 was, that self-awareness that Tyrese had, especially when like they're up in space or, after his near-death experience. And there's this one line, I'm not sure if you wrote it down, Rakush, but it's when Brie Larson's character is talking to the new head of the agency, and I forget the guy's name, but he says,
I think Ames?
Ames or something, and he was like, everyone becomes part of this family, and like it's like a cult, and just that. Again, I feel like that level of self-awareness is something that I have come to appreciate now that Fast 9's behind me, out of this, big doofy franchise, just because it's true. And I like how it is able to kind of poke fun at itself. And unlike Fast 9, when you're, shoehorning Han back in, I feel like you're able to make that type of joke in Fast 10 because there's nothing really trying to, counter that with another info dump. So when Ainz has that, self-awareness part, I had this big doofy smile on my face, and it really made me think, oh yeah, like there's so many characters they bring in, and again, it's true, we get like another sibling from another deceased member of their family, and again, I was going to ask you later on in the episode, it's like, so who else has a family member that we don't know about who can like show up? And I think if I was in a more, arms crossed mindset, them introducing, what was her sister's name?
I don't remember the name of the character.
The Brazilian cop. I can't remember her name either.
But yeah, like her sister, when they introduced her sister, I would have thought like of course and roll my eyes, but for some reason at this point you just have to take it what it is. This isn't like cinematic master, like, okay, it is a cinematic masterpiece, but it's not like well written, but it's a big stupid movie, and I feel like that one line was probably my favorite in the movie just because it kind of encompasses what this has become and how you kind of have to let go all your negative vibes when it comes to it.
Also worth mentioning, Brie Larson's answer to that is like, what all it takes to corrupt someone is some barbecue and beer. And like that also really added to the whole thing. And I'm like, oh shit, that is what it usually comes down to at the very end.
Yep. All these movies end the same, you guys.
Yeah.
Matt, what was your favorite part of the movie?
No, it's the same thing. It's like a cult was probably the iconic line for me, and that being early enough in the movie for me sold the whole movie for me.
Yeah.
I think because that kind of set the tone of how serious they were going to try to be with this movie. And I think that's exactly where I wanted it to be.
I really dug that, like, they took, because they have the freedom of this being a multi-part movie.
Yep.
Originally it was supposed to be just a 2-part finale, but Vin Diesel apparently at the world premiere said it's going to be a trilogy now, so make it that way you will. But like, I really appreciated that they used that freedom to kind of do something a slight bit different than the old movies, where like each like there's just like different groups of characters doing different things, almost like Avengers Endgame-esque, or like Infinity War-esque, where it's like you've got like these 10 different movies that you got to bring together, so let's just do a bunch of crazy shit and like go back to like the greatest hits of all the towns.
Yep.
Like, I love them going back to Rio de Janeiro. Not the biggest fan of Antarctica because that was Fast 8, and to me that's one of like if not the worst of the Fast movies, like one of the bottom 3. So it's like, it was whatever, but I appreciated that they're just like, yeah, we're gonna go to London, we're gonna go to Rio de Janeiro, we're just gonna go do all this, like, to these like locales again and stuff like that. And it was almost like a little bit of a blast from the past with each scene where you're like, oh yeah, this happened, or like, just something really cool happens, or like, I appreciated that they actually had branching storylines in a weird like Marvel Cinematic Universe sense.
So another big component of this movie is an introduction of, the big bad, who's, as you said, Rakush, this is now going to be a trilogy. And it seems like Jason Momoa's Dante will be the big bad going, for the rest of this trilogy or the franchise as a whole. And I actually wanted to get your opinions on what did you guys think about Dante and what did you think of Jason Momoa's portrayal of him?
I really enjoyed Dante as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that in the Fast franchise there's been a kind of eccentric villain. And I feel like Jason Momoa is the perfect person to do it with because he does physically fit the kind of gruff, strong bad guy look, but kind of the Gap Moe
Okay.
Jason Momoa's eccentricity really, really hit for me.
I really, really enjoyed his character in a way that watching the trailers, I did not think I would, honestly.
Same.
Like, because everything they showed about Jason Momoa's character, like still images, whatever, kind of actually made him look, for his standards, out of shape. I say his standards because I'm nobody to speak about his health, right? But like for his standards, he looked like, hey, like he's kind of like put on some weight. Is it intentional? I couldn't tell, right? But then like watching him execute the character as well, like I don't want to get too deep into like a Fast and the Furious character, but he was playing a role that he normally doesn't really get a chance to play. Like there is something, I guess Matt said, like eccentric about him, something very like, you know, just different about him compared to like Owen Shaw, Luke Shaw, Cypher, like you know, these are the villains from like the last 4 or 5 movies. So like there was definitely something really unique about him, while like understandably his backstory was extremely shoehorned into like the Fast 5 like, you know, ending and stuff. It is what it is. It's Fast and the Furious. I actually kind of just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that like even he felt like, you know, he was playing it very self-aware that like, yeah, I'm in this like really ridiculous franchise. Like, I don't need to be the most serious human being in the world. Which I think, to be fair, Charlize Theron fell victim to being a little bit too serious with the role. I think she did her best with, you know, whatever the content was. It wasn't strong, but it ended up playing a little too serious, which Momoa doesn't do, and I really think that helped this movie out.
Yeah, to actually both your points. Like first picking up one of your points, Rakush, where I feel like the trailers were cut in such a way where going into the movie, I thought Jason Momoa's character, I thought Dante would be, you know, your typical Fast and Furious villain. Here's a big guy, he's brooding. Of course, he's the anti-Dom because he wants to avenge his family by killing Dom's family. And when we finally see his character throughout the movie, it is, you know, this more flamboyant character that you're not really used to in this franchise. And it was just like the little things he does where, again, it does feel like it is a self-aware character in such a ridiculous franchise where just all his pose, like, Matt, how many times did he put his arms out and while looking at something?
I also really like his leg swings.
Yeah.
Those are all very good.
I was a big fan of this scene where he was doing the nail polish on the two dead security guys or whatever.
And they make him out to be such a big threat, but it's contrasted by, you know, this flamboyant character that I really enjoyed in this movie that I feel like the role itself, like he was really hammy in like the character or how he portrayed the character, which I kind of appreciated. And it's kind of a good contrast to how everyone else in this movie is, just because you know, say what you will about like Vin Diesel, but this is essentially a Vin Diesel ego show.
Oh, 100%.
And just to have Jason Momoa be Dante here was just really refreshing to see, and I really enjoyed it. But it got me thinking, guys, this, as you said, Rakush, this is going to be a trilogy. Do you think Dante will last the whole 3, like the next, you know, 3 movies overall? Or do you think like there has to be like a changing up where maybe Dante's not like the end all be all villain. Maybe he's not Thanos. And follow-up question, is Jason Momoa, is Dante going to join the family?
I don't think he joins the family. I do think that he isn't going to be like the end all be all. I think if he's around in the 3rd movie, he's the bad guy with somebody else.
Okay.
I think like somebody pairs up with him.
So I can't believe we're talking Fast lore, but there is some lore that actually hasn't been solved yet. So
oh no.
Hobbs and Shaw,
I
has
should really watch Hobbs and Shaw now.
it was okay. It's not the best movie, but it just like it exists in the universe, so I guess like there is a plot thread to be connected there. But I believe there is kind of like a hidden silhouette character at the end of that movie, almost like in the end credits and stuff, that is yet to be revealed. So there is a possibility that that comes back into play here. This one is a big spoiler, but one of the biggest parts of the movie is the end credit scene where gray bearded Rock comes back into the fold, and he puts a little bit of extra mustard on that some bitch, which is fantastic. But he's back as well, so I have a sneaking suspicion that this might end up being a trilogy in the sense that like Hobbs and Shaw 2 might be connected to this plot line.
Mm-hmm.
It'll play out there, and then like the final movie is going to be a like convergence of these two storylines, because I still think like Rock might be back, but I don't think he's like he wasn't in the same seat as Vin Diesel just yet, right? So like there's still a lot of shit to like clear up there.
Mm-hmm.
So I suspect like that's how they're going to play it out.
I guess that is true because Shaw does disappear. Wait,
Yeah.
Shaw
Yes.
disappears like partway through the movie
Yeah.
to go do his own thing and save his mom.
It's fucking crazy how many characters they end up having in this movie that they just have like, hey, here's a person that was a big character. Let's sow a seed for like a future part, which like a Fast movie has never done, right? So it's like super cool that there was such a world spanning like feel to this entire movie that they just had like this kick-ass scene with Jason Statham, and they're like, yeah, he'll be back in a future part. Don't stress.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But Rakush, you opened the floodgates. I feel like we need to talk about the post or the mid credits stinger, which is, the return of the Rock.
Yeah.
And then I guess part of the cliffhanger, which is, we have Cypher and Letty in Antarctica. All of a sudden a submarine pops up, and who comes out of the submarine but Giselle, Gal Gadot. And I remember turning to Matt and our pal, who was also there with us, and going, I fucking hate this movie so much. But
fucking hate this movie 10 out of 10.
Oh man.
So if I wanted to, poo-poo on the movie just a bit, now that we know The Rock's back, even though he's like not dead, but given like the real world meta aspect of, The Rock and Vin Diesel not, seeing eye to eye, and then of course Giselle quote unquote dying in Fast, I think that was 6 or 7, and then seeing her at the end, once again solidifying that no one truly dies in this movie. Do you think that takes away from John Cena's Jacob's quote unquote death in the middle of the movie?
He's not dead.
Yeah, 0% he's dead. Like, there is absolutely no way that John Cena's not going to be in any of the future movies.
Like, especially the fact that, he has to have a stare down with The Rock. He has to.
I feel like when, The Rock's not going to be in Fast 9, for obvious reasons, but the moment he's revealed at the end credits scene, there's only two things like that I'm looking forward to now. It's Jacob or John Cena meeting The Rock, and of course Giselle meeting Han again in Tokyo, because Tokyo
has to be
missing from their world-spanning greatest hits in Fast 10. But at that point, when we saw Giselle coming out of the submarine, Matt, what was your initial reaction to that?
I was like, that's not her, is it? I honestly thought that that's not Giselle for a second.
Did you think it was like Mr. Nobody, or
like I thought that maybe I just didn't think it was her. I was almost shell shocked into believing I'm seeing, my eyes are bad. Like, I must be seeing this person incorrectly. But man, once I realized it was her, and that earlier conversation, Jaren, that me and you had in the car of, they have to bring, like, they brought back Han. They're gonna bring back.
Yeah.
They're gonna bring back Gal Gadot. Like, when all that sunk in, I just smiled, Jaren. That was not any credit to the movie, just credit to us. Our own conversations was a good scene.
How about you, Rakush?
I mentally was groaning and really just like in my mind yelling, fuck off. Not in a negative way, but like, this shit is so dumb, I love it kind of way, that it's just like, yeah, of course they fucking do it this way. And of course there's like, without any rhyme or reason, she's the one rescuing them from Antarctica. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. All right, I guess. That's a lot of this movie for me. It's just like, yeah, okay, sure. All right, I guess. Like, you know, just whatever.
Again, I feel like Fast 9 broke me down so much where I feel like if I were to watch these two movies back to back, Fast 9 and then say like Fast 10 like a few months later for the first time, I would probably poo-poo Fast 10 like a lot more than I currently am.
Sure.
But I think it is just that acceptance of, okay, this is what this is. The Fast franchise has always been the ultimate junk food. And again, one of the things that I loved about Fast 9 was all the fan service nods back to Tokyo Drift and all like the previous movies. And once again, we see that throughout this movie as a whole. I think one of the things that stuck out to me the most, and Matt, it stuck out to you as well when we were discussing it, was the Nos scene where we followed the Nos throughout like the car and then going out of like
a little blue flame at the end.
At the end. And just that little callback to Fast 1 where it still remembers its roots in some weird way because, again, Hines... or was it Hines does it a bit, and then... Ames does it a bit, and then even Dante, when he's taunting Dom in the abandoned police station, there's all these callbacks to the quote-unquote humble beginnings of the Fast franchise. Right. And I don't know if they'll continue to, lean into that aspect. But, like, for me so far, it's been done just enough where it's able to look back at its history. It's, hey, this is a total 180 to where it was in the beginning. And yet, this notion of family is still throughout, even though I think the quote-unquote notion of family was, like, shoehorned in by like 5, and I feel like when 5 came around, that's when the whole family aspect really meant something. But at the same time, the fact that this movie is just unabashedly able to go, hey, we're gonna retcon something, or we're gonna insert a new character and just continue going and not be ashamed about it, is again something that you have to, I guess, appreciate, because if you don't go to these movies without appreciation, like, they're not good movies. I would say.
Like if you're going in there like the way you describe it, like arms crossed, there is 100% chance you're gonna walk out thinking it's a terrible movie. But if you go in there just being like, all right, I guess, like, just like whatever comes your way, you just kind of like, if not accept it, at least just kind of like make peace with it. It is fine, right? So I do have a question for you guys, because this is one thing that's really bugged me in 8, 9, and now in 10 as well, is how they have handled Paul Walker's character, Brian. It always bothers me because, especially in 9 and 10, the big thing was like, oh, your friends and family are in trouble, right? Your friends and family are in trouble. And in Fast 10, like, they basically describe it with the Scott Eastwood character as like, Brian's safe, like, he's okay, like, he's not in harm's way. But then, like, when all his friends and family are outlawed by the agency and like they're under attack, like, suddenly that has to include Brian's character, but we know that, Paul Walker is not alive anymore, right? So it's like, I'm constantly concerned about how they're going to handle this character in the coming movies, because at this point, like, I genuinely feel like they are going to just try to, like, CG his face into the finale in a way that like, I just feel like they're going to do it thinking it's an homage, and, like, it is going to be, like, 30 seconds, maybe, max. But I'm very concerned that character is somehow going to return for, like, one scene in these final few movies.
100%, I think that the final, or like the climactic scene of Fast 12 is Dom in trouble, and then Dom is saved by his kid and Paul Walker. Or Dom is in trouble and he is saved by his kid in Paul Walker's car. Like, that has to be the closing scene of this movie.
This movie's already set the precedence for, like, a 10-year-old riding a car and being really good at it, and also turning a 10-year-old into a murderer, because John Cena very clearly
killed some people.
Yeah, like, he blew up, like, 5 cars by himself, so, like, that kid's already a mass murderer. So the precedence is already there. So I'm
But-
kind of stressed.
To your question, Rakush, and I guess we should probably get this out of the way too, where I honestly do feel like Paul Walker's presence and Brian's character in the movie, it lives in this weird limbo where, in canon, Brian's still alive. They'll mention him every now and then as, the tribute. But it's this, again, we go back to, was it Fast 8 or Fast 7 with, the
Fast
splitting off.
7 is the splitting.
Yeah, the
that
split
was a
off.
tribute.
And it's that notion of, okay, the audience knows, Paul Walker is unfortunately not with us anymore. Yet they still kind of pay tribute to him. And it's in this weird limbo where I was having this conversation with my partner, and like she's not, a big fan of like the Fast franchise. She's not a diehard like we are,
Right.
But I think to her, she said, "I feel like that's one line like the can't cross. Like you can't bring Brian back or do what they did, with his brother and CG him for like the last minute, just because I feel like that might be something like Vin Diesel doesn't want to do just as a person, but I feel like it would feel kind of cheap as well. But at the same time, I feel like what they're doing with Brian's character right now is also pretty cheap. And like, it's just in this awkward place where everyone knows what they're doing and why they're doing it, yet it doesn't actually make sense. And again, this franchise doesn't make sense, but the Brian character doesn't make sense for a completely different reason of, hey, we named, it's a little B. He's named after Brian, who's alive, but we'll never see him. And even though it's a tribute to me, it's like a cheap writing device of, hey, what's happening to the kids, or what's happening to these other characters? Oh, they're with Brian. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of pushed to the side where I know it's supposed to be tribute, but it's getting to the point where it's getting a bit too weird.
It's uncomfortable in many ways because, like, even it's a little bit. Not that this movie is like super immersive or anything like that, but there are moments in the movie where like you do sometimes you take one further step back and you're like, oh wait, this is weird, because like when Vin Diesel ends up in the police station and there's like that whole like very Batman villain-esque like setup where like there's a bunch of projectors and stuff going. His photo keeps popping up in that, right? So it's like, for plot purposes, they're implying that he is important to Jason Momoa's character. I forget his name. His character, his character's revenge as well, right? So it's like, in the back of my mind, it's like, this is weird, this is weird, this is weird. Like, why is his photo there? If they just kind of like left it to that one dialogue with Scott Eastwood where they're like, yeah, Brian's safe or whatever, even that would have been like, okay, it's just a self-aware little wink and nod kind of thing, right? But like to keep that going just now feels a little uncomfortable in a way where like it's almost inherent to the whole theme of family with this stuff that like you really can't escape it, but then what do you do with it? I don't know, right? So it's bizarre.
I think it's really weird, especially in Fast 10, just because Dante, for as eccentric as he is, he's depicted to be this psychopath where everyone's under his thumb. He has tabs on everyone, and yet Brian's untouched in a weird way where like he's being taunted. But again, and then it goes to this whole meta thing of, okay, if Dante's shown to be crazy, and he says he's going after everyone who's ever associated him. So like Shaw's mom's, even though Sean's kind of, he was at a barbecue once, but his family's being targeted. The Rock, the post-credit scene, like Hobbs is being targeted, and yet Brian's character is just this weird presence who's not actually there, where if Dante is the psychopath you present him to be, then what about Brian? Like, Brian's safe. Oh, how? That doesn't make... Yeah, sorry, man.
I almost feel like... This didn't occur to me when I was watching the movie, but like after watching it and kind of processing it, I almost feel like Dante as a character would have been the like best way to kill off Brian.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and it would have made everything a lot easier in terms of explaining Brian.
Yeah.
I'm also like the reason I am concerned with it, not to like keep, talking about the same part of this movie, but I think it was either I think it's Fast 9, where they are having the barbecue at the end. Like there's like that quick montage of like, someone driving Brian's car to the barbecue.
Skyline.
Yeah, so it's like they're flirting with the concept of this character kind of like returning in some capacity.
Yeah.
So like even if we don't see Brian's face, like I think Matt, you and I were talking about this earlier, like maybe it's just Brian's car that you see, or like stuff like that. But I am just a little concerned, or like maybe concerned isn't the best word. I just can't think of the right term. But like, yeah, there's something about that lingering that I'm curious, like how they handle that for the next two parts, if they handle it at all. But yeah.
But speaking about Paul Walker, what did you guys think of Meadow Rain, his daughter, her cameo in the movie as the flight attendant? And
I did not know
I
that
didn't catch that. That was his daughter?
Yeah, that was his daughter.
Oh, damn. Okay, did not know that.
So the flight attendant who helps Little B and Jacob in the plane is, Paul Walker's daughter, who, makes a cameo in the movie. And I think this is something me and my partner were talking about, how... do you think she'll appear in like the rest of the franchise, or can you see her as the Stan Lee cameo character where, hey, here's her helping out the family in some way for like a few seconds?
Oh, Jaren, she obviously got them out of the plane at the end of the movie.
Oh.
She knows what John Cena's character is up to. She knows what's going on here.
Yeah.
She has to be a part of like the crew, right?
I don't know, like her acting. I'm not saying like you need like to be a fine actor for this franchise, but I'm curious if they do bring her to be like a bigger role, or I think having her just make cameo appearances is also just a nice tribute in a way, where if they do the Marvel Stan Lee thing, I think that could be really fun moving forward, and kind of Paul Walker's legacy lives on through his daughter in that regard. I think that would be fun, but other than that, like I enjoyed her cameo appearance. It was quick. And what were you thinking about it, Rakush?
I mean I didn't even realize it was his daughter, so I mean to me it's like hearing it just now, the gut reaction is, oh, that's pretty cool, like that's a nice gesture, to like make sure the actual family of the actor isn't ignored and all of this stuff. So like that's pretty neat.
But yeah, guys, now that let's pull out of the bummer zone. Rest in peace, Paul Walker, and going back to Fast 10, the movie itself. So we all know it's going to be a trilogy. And I unfortunately think back to kind of media when something is going to be a trilogy, when you get to the middle movie.
Yes.
Where I think moving forward, that's what concerns me the most, just because, track records show that the middle movie is not the strongest. Like your stakes are at minimum at best, just because you still need to lead into the third movie. And how do you guys feel about, Fast 10 just being a trilogy instead of a two-parter?
So my initial concern is we might not see the end of this franchise until we're 40. And part of that is because the writer's strike is currently happening, which means there's no script writing happening on any of this stuff, right? So give or take, I think this strike could go well into like the later parts of 2023. Which means the work won't start until 2024, roughly, on the script. They might not start filming until 2025 on the second part. So give or take 2 years between movies at that point. Like, we might be like 38, 39, maybe 40 when this movie comes out. And my only thought to that right now is there's a strong possibility I react to that final movie the way I reacted to Toy Story 3 when I watched it. Yeah, crying like a, crying like a, yeah. So very, very emotional, but also that's like 6-7 years away possibly. So my initial thought is like, man, that is my first concern. The other thing is what I was just mentioning earlier. I really think they're gonna split this up in a more like Hobbs and Shaw is part of the trilogy sense, where like I don't think we're gonna actually see much of the Fast crew in the next movie. I think they're gonna pop up in like the final part, but I think this next part is gonna be Hobbs and Shaw, because Shaw has, like you said, like he's already gone to like do stuff with his family. Hobbs has been introduced again, so with a badass looking goatee. So yeah.
Like, I don't think that... I almost feel like the second movie is going to be an hour of Vin Diesel kind of pulling himself together with his kid. And then, like, I don't know, a half hour of exposition and then a half hour of The Rock and Jason Statham kind of doing their own thing. And then the end scene is, I don't know, they're in trouble. And then, hey, look, there's Han and, like, and them, like, coming back, helping. They somehow have God's eye. I don't know. That's how they found him. And I feel like that's how the second movie, like, has to go, because but you can't kill like half the crew and then bring them back immediately. You need to have like an hour of Vin Diesel like sad for a while before you bring them back.
Yeah, because none of that really happened in this movie. It all just happened like very quickly at the end. So yeah, if this ends up being like the second part is like actually the Fast family, then yeah, like I see that happening as well.
I'm gonna lose my shit if it's like, hey, this is Fast 12 Part 1.
Like Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh man. I don't know how 40-year-old me is going to react to Fast.
It's
Fast
a weird
12 final cut.
It's a weird existential crisis right now to realize like we might end up being 40 by the time this franchise is done. Like it's when did we start watching it? Like 20 years ago is the first movie, but like yeah, we were like 11, 12 when the first movie came out.
Yeah, like it's gonna be a long while, and I don't know. It's gonna be wild.
Man, Matt, I don't know why, but you highlighting what you think the breakdown of the next movie will be totally just put the thought in my head of Han and Gazelle aren't gonna meet next movie, are they?
Jaren, they meet on Tinder. Jaren, that's how they find each other again.
I'm gonna hate it when next movie we're gonna, if we do see, because what you said makes sense, where you can't end on that cliffhanger of most of the family dying in that plane crash and then immediately have them appear right off the bat, where we're going to have some sort of misconnection at the end, right? Where we'll see Han and Gazelle just miss each other, and I'm going to be like clawing at my thighs when I'm watching that in theaters. But
it could also be like Jason Statham rescues Han as sort of like a full circle moment. But then, like, as he's rescuing them, he doesn't know that, like, Dominic Toretto is also there with the son to be rescued. And so, like, at that point, like, I think that's what you're saying, where, like, Letty, Giselle, and Cypher rescued Dom and the kid, whereas Jason Statham rescues, like, the others, and they just kind of cross paths without actually crossing paths.
Man.
The second movie's going to be wild, you guys.
But yeah, now that you mention it, Matt, if it's true, well, I guess if it plays out the way you were suspecting, where it's kind of not necessarily front loaded, but a majority of it is carried by Vin Diesel and Little B. Is that a good movie? Like, for me,
that's kind of what this movie was, right? Like,
but I feel like the Fast movie is an ensemble piece, and as much as we say this is Vin Diesel's Eagle project, I feel like I can't take a lot of Vin Diesel. I need other characters sprinkled in, so I guess that makes sense. Of okay, Dom's doing his own thing, then Hobbs and Shaw are doing their own thing, whether it be a spin-off movie or injected in in Fast 10-2. But
it's like Final Fantasy 10-2.
Because like
that's where it's going, right? It has to be called 10-2 at this point.
Or they go Fast X, Fast Double X, and then Fast Triple X, but that's how
they
converge the Triple X franchise with the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Oh, I can't believe you would say that's good.
Why?
Because I don't want you to be that right.
Sorry, Matt, what were you saying?
Was like Letty and them weren't, they're still sort of safe, right? because like I feel like then because they can be, I guess, the B plot
Right.
for the second movie.
That's true.
Keep in mind that they have a submarine, and then at the end of Fast 10, the dam was about to break, and so Dom is going to be submerged in like some body of water somewhere with the kid, and they're going to be rescued by the submarine.
Are they in Portugal?
The submarine can make it there. Let's
Yeah,
not.
they're in Antarctica.
Listen,
They're just gonna go north for a
Listen,
bit.
Dom and
Wait.
Letty made it to Rome
Yeah.
very quickly at the start of the movie to save those other people, whereas there was probably like a 12-hour gap between when Tyrese and Taj and those guys actually made it to Rome. So like fast travel exists in this world. I think we've confirmed that.
But oh yeah, and then you still have to introduce the Tokyo cast. Like know
Jaren,
they're coming
they
back.
were in 9.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly, as much as I would love them to go to Tokyo, I feel like that wasn't a Dom and Friends like
Yeah.
place. That was like Han kicking it, and them visiting it in 9. I think is maybe the last time.
I believe,
think
guys.
we
I
see-
believe.
I wanna
think we
believe.
I think we see Giselle and Han at the very end of Fast XXX
In Tokyo.
in Tokyo. I think like that's their finale. Is like they settled there and like they spend their life there because like that whole conversation at the start of this movie
Yeah.
about being a dad and stuff as well, specifically with Han. I feel like that's building up that plot point for them as well.
I could see that.
Canon wise, Han's 39. You guys,
Okay, wait, he's younger than I thought he'd be.
which is what I'm saying. Like Vin Diesel's isn't like these characters are old. Is all I'm saying.
I'm looking up Vin Diesel's age right now. By
Vin
the
Diesel's
way,
in his 50s, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he's in his
55 years old.
Yeah, that seems about
tracks,
where
yeah.
I would have thought. Yeah.
50s. But anyway, you guys. So
I want to ask like one last question of you guys,
Okay.
right? Because Jaren kind of like talked about when the franchise jumped the gun a little bit, but there was a pretty interesting Twitter thread a couple of days ago where people were asking, it's like, when did Fast and the Furious basically become so unrealistic? And I think my favorite answer there, and I want to get both your answers, maybe it's the same for you, Jaren, but like my answer for that is definitely in Fast 5 where like The Rock, or Fast 6, sorry, where like The Rock has an arm cast on and he sees a news thing on TV. He stands next to a window, just flexes his arm so hard that like the cast just like cracks off and he says, "Daddy's got to go to work." I think that's the moment where Fast and the Furious really like became this Fast and the Furious to be, where it was just like, yeah, this is a bunch of superheroes just doing crazy shit.
I think for me, I can't remember which movie it is in particular. It actually might have been 5 or... okay, I honestly don't even want to give it a number. But it's the one where Vin Diesel kind of jumps over a highway or from a car to car on a highway.
That's
and
six.
catches Letty, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
6.
Is
isn't
that
it?
6 as well?
I'm pretty sure that's 6.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Letty's not in 5. Letty comes back
Oh,
in 6.
yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely 6, where like he jumps to save her and like her memory suddenly comes back around then as well.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like Fast and the Furious is a Bollywood franchise. Like if you guys ever watch a Bollywood movie, you'd understand it more.
But yeah, to answer your question, Rakush, it's the same answer as Matt. If you're, I have 2 answers to the, when did the series jump, and I think 5 was grounded in a way where 5 definitely sets the roots of what the franchise becomes, but 6 is when it becomes
Yeah.
what Fast is today. Just because during that scene when Vin Diesel leaps car to car, jumps Letty, it's, oh, wait, what are physics?
Yeah.
Because,
Once physics goes out the window,
Yeah.
I guess, is when
Yeah.
the franchise jumps.
And I feel like 6 is you have to be a fan of this type of movie, of this type of like action flick, and turn your brain off to actually continue on with it and enjoy it for what it is. But if we're talking specifically, when did it jump the shark? Even for a movie that's essentially jumping sharks constantly, for me it is Fast 9 and them bringing back Han.
Right.
And how convoluted that was, just to say, hey, we really like this character, we need to bring him back somehow. Because as much as I love Han and as much as we meme about it, and I'm sorry for getting back into this, that's the moment where, okay, you took like the most quote unquote emotional point in this movie franchise, this pivotal moment, and say, okay, screw it. That means like you can't have anything serious moving forward just because you can rewrite it at like the drop of the hat, which they constantly are doing. There's no stakes to these movies, and I feel like that's definitely the part where, as serious as I could take the Fast franchise, I could never take it seriously after that.
Yeah.
Fully. But
And I guess like one thing worth mentioning about Han coming back in 9 as well is that to me it still feels like a reaction to having Jason Statham's character become a good guy in Fast 8 and Hobbs and Shaw as a result as well. And like there's like on my end at least, I was like, dog, like he killed one of the fan favorite characters. Now he's a protagonist. And it almost feels like they had to answer a lot of questions on that. That's why Han came back as well.
where the Fast franchise through a meta perspective is wild, you guys.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Wild. But
I think this one really ranks like top half for me as far as favorite Fast movies.
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe one episode will rank them.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm actually heavily biased towards this movie. One, because of like recency bias.
Sure.
And two, I don't think we talked about this yet, Jaren, but the 4DX experience of this movie was insane. I loved it. Oh my god.
This was... I talked about it with you guys for the Dragon Ball movie, but Matt, we saw it in 4DX, and as your first 4DX experience, what did you think of it overall?
Jaren, the 4DX experience for this movie was wild. It was... Honestly, your partner had said before that, hey, D-Box does not even compare to 4DX. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, like the D-Box, I don't know, it's kind of shaky. The calibrating that they did before the movie, where it's kind of just a quick, shift forward, shift back. Yeah. You kind of feel the rumble under the seats, and I was like, oh, this is already going to be kind of wild.
This also seems like the perfect movie for that, too.
Mm-hmm. And I think something about... Because I've never been into a D-Box theater before, right? And the amount of space that is in front of you is like 2 rows of chairs of space where there's nothing. And my immediate thought was, oh, that's for if someone gets thrown out of their seat so they don't crush the people in front of them or fall into gears or something. And everything about that kind of, I guess, compiled together, and the amount of shaking you do, I think the wind effects really added for me. The lighting effects during the Rome scene when everything was exploding. Everything about that experience is amazing, Jaren. I honestly don't think that I can watch a movie without 4DX anymore. It was that good. I can't wait to see how they use it in other movies, because I'm not much of a cinema person, but if I'm going to go now, I might as well go in 4DX.
All right, Rakush, next time there's a choice 4DX movie, we're all going.
100%. The next Fast and the Furious movie.
Of course.
And additionally, Jaren, this wasn't part of the movie at all, but I mean, he's been on the show before, so I'll just say his name. Subin was with us, and he was to my right. Just in the corner of my eye, I see him holding a tray of nachos, just balancing it like a gimbal when all the shakes and stuff are happening. To my other side, some random dude just having the time of his goddamn life. This guy was cheering, laughing after any kind of big 4DX movement scene. He's bouncing in his seat. Even during the 4DX movie, this guy he did not need to move that much. He was shaking in his chair, really rolling with this experience, and just having that energy beside me was amazing. If he wasn't talking to his friends after the movie, I wanted to talk to him and say, yo, you really made my experience of this movie better. You're living your best life, and that's the best.
Like I said when we talked about the Super Mario movie, Matt, where it's one of those things. I don't mind kids in theaters, especially when it's a family movie or a kids movie, because this movie was made for you. You enjoy yourselves, and I feel Matt is understating this guy's contribution to the whole movie going experience, because as I explained previously, when you go to a 4DX movie, they have a little introductory scene, developed for the 4DX experience, just to kind of get you, accustomed to the movements, all the different effects. It's mini sizzle reel of what you're going to expect for like the next few hours. And after that, like introduction to 4DX, it's just this guy going, "Let's go," really loud, and that kind of built up everyone. And yeah, just having the random people like really enjoying themselves made me miss, the cinema experience. And I love 4DX, you guys.
That's cool, man. And that's really cool to hear after like 3 years of like the pandemic, which kind of like really hurt that industry. That like this actually seems like a pretty cool innovation to kind of like build up and use for movies like this as well. So that's really neat.
Winding down, Rakush, you're on this show, so we have to mention the obligatory wrestling.
Hell yeah!
When John Cena, when Jacob busted out the FU, the attitude adjustment, how did that rank for you?
Dude, there's like I mean, there's been a lot of wrestlers in movies at this point that like it's not like the biggest thing for me anymore, but like I do always appreciate when like wrestlers always remind people where they come from, which is why I'm like really excited for the future parts of this movie where almost certainly like John Cena and The Rock are gonna have a face off. And like that was so Matt, you don't watch wrestling, but like 2 WrestleManias in a row, I want to say like 7-8 years ago at this point, Rock and John Cena actually main evented it back-to-back years. So like there's actually like a really big like wrestling related feud going with them. I'm pretty sure they're on good terms outside of it, but like just the idea of those two meeting up once again in this movie, it's just a funny one, and like it's a pretty cool little moment, which I guarantee you, if there's a single wrestling fan in the theater for that moment that has the energy that your Perfect Stranger had, they will be losing it during that. So I'm really excited for that.
But Rakush, we have 2 more movies in theory coming up.
Yeah.
What wrestler do you think will be introduced in the Fast and Furious movie?
I don't know introduce, but I think they'll reintroduce Roman Reigns' character.
Right.
Because Roman Reigns was in Hobbs and Shaw. Yeah. I would not be shocked if he pops up again with a bit more prominent of a role. Seth Rollins is apparently doing Marvel movies now, so he might pop up in one of these. Actually, he'd be a pretty fun guy to be on like Jason Momoa's side as like, one of like the noted henchmen that has to have a fight with one of these guys. Actually, like side note, I actually really hope this next movie that they have coming out, they really build up more guys on Jason Momoa's side as like, you need to take these guys down in final fights or whatever, just so like the finale has like a pretty cool kind of like, just wrestling-esque like card of like Ames versus Rock, because that's got to be the fight. Like Dante versus Dominic Toretto. Like it's how they like randomly had Tony Jaa in like Fast 7 and like stuff like that. Like that's I do want to see a little bit of that coming up as well.
I mean, we were talking about this like when we were leaving the theater, Matt, of okay, if this is essentially Fast Avengers, like this is our Avengers. I know we make that meme a lot. This is our Avengers. And they're going back for, 9 movies, 10 with Hobbs and Shaw. There are so many different characters they can pull from. Like, especially even going back to, like, DK could probably come back if they wanted to. Lance, and from Fast 1, who was it, Angel? I forget his name. Who did they put away in Fast 2?
I can't remember.
Like,
the Eva Mendes is I know who you're talking about.
Is Eva Mendes' character dead? She can probably come back.
No, she exists. No, she was in
Is she a
Fast
cop or something?
7.
Right.
Or she was in Hobbs and Shaw, I think.
I mean, I know Devin Aki said she's retired to be a mom, but she can, like, Suki can come back in some form, and
Suki got to come back.
I think at this point, given the precedent that has been set in this franchise, if there's no giant Doctor Strange portal scene at the end of Fast Triple X,
which is fucking muscle cars coming out of the portal.
Guys, remember Too Fast, Too Furious when they opened the garage?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Wow.
They're going to be orange cars with the grossest underglow, and they're all just going to come in.
Ja Rule got to come back.
Oh, man.
I'm telling
Ja
you
Rule
guys.
and Monica have to come back just so we can get that in the finale as well. Where, like, he's on Dante's side, but then Monica beats him in a race, and we finally get the Monica once more. Just once more.
I know we're this is far into the future, aka when we're 40 and 2 more movies. But one, this movie, even though they're going to be so much older, like one of the ending scenes is Han and Gazelle, replaying that scene of like Gazelle sitting on Han's lap and they're driving somewhere in Tokyo. Maybe, or it's her in the passenger's side with like a kid on her lap or something like that. Like that happens, but this all ends with race wars, right, you guys? Like,
Not that kind of race war.
no, I know you can't do race wars anymore, but
That has to be seen. Jaren, I didn't know how much I missed when they were doing the race in this movie.
Yeah.
That kind of shot
Yo.
of it coming between the windows.
Yeah. Honestly, I loved everything they did in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
Everything. Like,
It was
you were
really
talking about
good.
homages to earlier movies as well. Like, that scene with him and Dante as well was very reminiscent of Fast Five, where Dom has to, like, meet Hobbs in there.
yeah.
And he's like, this is Brazil or whatever, right? Like, there's a lot of that going there. The race itself, just like, yeah, it felt very nostalgic in a really cool way as well. So yeah, even the bridge scene, like they had a lot of parallels with Ames basically being Hobbs in that scene. There's just so much about that character that I'm like, he's gonna get his ass kicked by the Rock at some point.
course.
Like that's what that fight's gonna be. So yeah,
But guys, I think this is the episode when we're now talking about what's going to happen in the future. But closing thoughts on Fast 10, Matt, go.
It's an amazing movie.
Rakush, final thoughts on Fast 10.
the only Rome I know is a Roman noodle.
To answer my question, I think Seth Rollins might make an appearance. Becky Lynch, I can see making an appearance.
Yeah.
You know what?
Becky would be a good one.
I'd like to see the Miz in these movies.
Miz would fit. Yeah.
And I said it in the beginning. Fast 9 really really made me poo-poo the franchise, but I think Fast 10 really brought me back, and I'm excited to see where it goes, even though I'm really curious if the second movie is really good, and I hope we're all around to see it in the near future. And with that, guys, another beefy episode for a beefy franchise. But as always, I want to thank my best friends for joining me this week. I want to thank you, Rakush.
Movie so special, we had to be in person to talk about it.
I want to thank you, Matt.
I want to be a beefy boy like all the beefy boys in Fast and the Furious.
I want to thank Amazing Machines. I want to thank 10-Second Cars. I want to thank Tuna Sandwiches.
You know what was really weird?
Okay.
In one of the scenes where they're kind of going through like pictures, I can't remember if it was during the cop thing or if it was just in the garage, but there is a picture of Paul Walker during the tuna sandwich scene, and contextually, that's a weird ass picture.
Yeah.
No, there's a ton of those where you're
Yeah.
like, why does he have a photo of that? But
Yeah.
What really stood out about those scenes in particular, I know like even in Dom's garage we see a bunch of different photos as well,
That's where it was.
and of course the police, the taunting scene from Dante, but I know those are all screen grabs from like the previous movies, but like trying to see it in lore, it's who's taking these pictures and like why do they look so good?
Like, I just like the concept of, hey, there's this random customer ordering a tuna sandwich. Just take a picture of them.
and Roman's gonna ask that question in the next movie, as the next.
Oh,
manager.
100%. Oh, I hope he does.
Oh,
That's going to
man.
be how they got out of the plane, actually.
But with that, Matt, please take it away.
This has been The Mistake Zone, and we're all out of permanently dead characters.
I mean, Paul Walker.
That's a person.